Welcome to this symposium on EALTA and the 20 years of EALTA. A number of you people have been coming regularly to the EALTA conferences for 20 years. A person in this room said, entering a room 2 days ago, well, we are the dinosaurs. I hope we are a bit more flexible than the dinosaurs. But we have come together, we have enjoying and learning from presentations, as well as appreciating talking to people for professional and personal reasons. For me, coming from the far north, the outskirts of Europe, the support, the advice and discussions we have had with different people in the language testing community has made all the difference to our work over the years. The idea of this symposium came up during the conference dinner in Helsinki last year. And after Helsinki, we have worked on the idea. Angela Hasselgren, she took part in the initial preparations and discussions, and I have greetings from her to everyone. Greetings. In the end, it was decided that the panel would consist of 3 presidents. The first president, Neus Figueras, the 4th president, Gudrun Erickson, and the current president, which, when this was decided, was Jamie Donnelly, but then he sadly passed away, and now Slobodanka Dimova is part of the panel. We want this symposium to be quite informal, and we want that you take part by sharing your views on EALTA, with telling us what EALTA has meant for you, if you have things you think EALTA should work on in the future. We are happy if you share that with us. And and we want to start. We want us and you to reflect on what has been, where are we now, and how should the future be. And then I think I will give the floor to the first president of EALTA, Neus Figueras.
As this is informal, this is the slide that we were supposed to show. We're going to be looking back, looking around, and looking ahead. And my 8 minutes, because we've been told that we agreed that we have only 8 minutes each, because we want to have a lot of time for you. My 8 minutes will basically be looking back, in what context EALTA was born, and then sharing with you my feelings about EALTA and what it has meant for me. If we look back, I'm not going to make you go back as far as with Barry yesterday to the 15th century. We can go and have a look at the late 1990s, where a lot was happening in Europe, and not only in the UK, and not only within institutions or examining boards. A lot was happening in Hungary, in Estonia, in Latvia, in Finland, in many countries that were revising their university entrance exam or their maturas, etc. And this was mainly due, most probably because a conjugation of the stars, but also because the CFR had already started circulating in 1995. In 1996, we were able to look and comment and use a draft 2 of the document, which, by the way, at that time, the descriptors, the famous, infamous descriptors, were just an appendix. So after the recommendations of many people, they were put in the text, and they became more famous than the text itself. The ELP had already started circulating and being used, mainly because the Council of Europe thought that the ELP would be helpful in the understanding of the CFR, mainly by the teaching profession. And Dialang had just got funding from the European Commission, a lot of money, a lot of funds to develop tests in all the European languages. So this was going on, as it were, officially. And less officially, in the UK, you had the Assessment Reform Group that had reformulated itself and commissioned the black box, what goes on in the classroom in terms of assessment. EALTA took place, EALTA's conference, LTRC, took place in Tampere, and organized jointly by Tampere and the University of Jyväskylä, the language group in the University of Jyväskylä. There was a special issue on ethics edited by Alan Davies in 1997. In Hungary, the British Council was leading, together with Charles Alderson from the University of Lancaster, the Into Europe project, which was very important at the time, and we learned a lot from them in 4 or 5 years, and who contributed a lot to the future creation of EALTA. And the first language testing bibliography was also published. So a lot was going on in many countries. I don't want to mention one or the other, but there was a lot of boiling water all over the place. The turn of the century continued like that. There was the EALTA Barcelona meeting, where the famous question, is my B1 your B1, was asked, which developed into the Helsinki meeting in 2002, funded by the Finnish government and by the Council of Europe, which developed into the manual group, the Manual for Relating Exams to the CFR, published in 2003, and then second version, or final version, 2009. Ilana Shihami published The Power of Tests in 2001, and also the Language Assessment Quarterly, so its first issue in 2004. I could also mention LTRC at Reading in 2003, but all this meant that a lot of professionals were getting together, talking and seeing how they could improve their language testing and assessment practices, and a lot was going in Europe, which was not the case before. Well, Barry demonstrated that it was the case before, but anyway, this decade, as it were, 1995, 2005, was very active. So this group of professionals that kept meeting in different conferences got together, and thanks to the help of a number of people, but mainly Charles Alderson from the Department of Linguistics in the University of Lancaster, put together a project that would get funding from the European Commission called EALTA. And basically the objective of EALTA was to create EALTA, but it was a European network for language testing and assessment, 14 partner institutions from 13 different European countries, who not only worked on the creation of EALTA, but also prepared a number of studies and surveys, which I think are still on the website, but I couldn't locate them. But they are there, I'm sure. And I think there was a very important European survey of language testing and assessment needs, part 1, coordinated by Angela Hazelgreen in Norway, and part 2, coordinated by Ari Huta in Finland, which contributed to finding out what EALTA could be useful for in the different countries in Europe. The inaugural conference took place in Kranjska Gora in Slovenia. Our mission statement had 2 important verbs, understanding and sharing, and also other terms, theoretical, practices, and improvement. So basically, this is the mission statement, which everybody, I think, will remember. And the first conference did not have as many sponsors as the ones that Slobodanka showed yesterday. We basically had a sponsor, the help of British Council Hungary, who funded the workshops that people in the Inter-Europe conference, Inter-Europe project could give, and the Slovenian government. So we were rather poor, and if you think of the program you have in your hands, this is the program in Slovenia. So that shows that we had not much money, but we were very happy. And we had something like 200 participants. I checked the list, and there's something like about over 15 participants who attended this conference. And I don't know, Norman, Riley, Ildiko, Cecilia, Ari. I mean, I don't want to name them all because, I mean, I may forget somebody. But, well, of course, Gudrun, etc. So, we were happy in EALTA. We were very proud of our ethos. And if you look at all the information on the website, the mission, the statement, the rationale for EALTA, you'll find terms that can be subsumed in these 3 I's: inclusion, independence, and innovation. I'm not going to go deep into this because Gudrun will work on that further and talk into more detail about the guidelines for good practice. But I would like to go now and talk about my take, what EALTA has meant for me, and why I still come to EALTA every year after 20 years. I don't know. I mean, there's many people here who were there in 2004. I've been coming every year, and I've enjoyed myself all the time. So EALTA, for me, has given me a lot of sources for learning, has given me friends. I don't want to and mentors. Some of them are not here anymore, but finished. And I think that EALTA has many, many pluses. And these are pluses that I think that EALTA can boast of. Participation. We are a big family. The guidelines, which have driven us for many years and which are inclusive in that we look at 3 different constituencies. We've been a lever for change. We need to be very proud of this. In 2004, not many people talked about assessment, and now the profession talks about assessment much more. So we've got the respect from the field. A lot of the students who came at the beginning are now very important professionals in the field. We contributed to professionalization, localization. We funded the creation of other organizations, EALTA in Spain, EALTA in South America, etc. And we are collaborating. And one of the most recent, I think, evidences of collaboration is the publication of the handbook together with ALTE, EALTA, and the British Council. And the things that I think that EALTA can continue doing, and perhaps even increase the way it's doing it, is this list that is here, which in fact, most of it is an expansion of how the handbook is going to be used, the handbook for aligning language education to the CFR, and we're going to be talking about that in Barcelona in October. So I don't want to echo Barry, which I did already. He talked about us always having to push boundaries and never being satisfied with ourselves. But I also have a quote. I have a quote from a Broadway musical called Suffs that talks about the suffragist movement in the States. And one of the catchphrases at the end when they sing a fantastic song is keep marching on, keep marching on. And the phrase before they say marching on, it says progress is, wait a minute, I can't find it. Progress is possible but not guaranteed. So we need to keep marching on and getting, into being even better than we've been to. Finished.
Gudrun, you?
Careful because
Yes, I know.
Don't stop.
There are lots of possibilities.
interference.
Oh my God, and a broken toe in the middle of everything. I'm now starting my, timer. Oh my God. there we go. Anyway, I would like to carry on a bit. This keep marching on that Neus mentions. I think she means EALTA. I'm sure she means EALTA, but I sincerely hope that she means herself as well. So let's keep marching on. Anyway, we said that we want to keep this quite informal and personal, and so then I would like to start off with a question: what made me immediately sort of interested in EALTA, starting to get involved in EALTA from the beginning. First in EALTA, then as secretary-treasurer, which was combined in those days, then as secretary, and finally as the president, not finally, but anyway, as the president, between 13 and 16. And I think that it has got to do with something which is very personal, and that is that I've always had a problem with angles, or hierarchies, if you see what I mean. The way we look at each other. Personally, of course, but professionally, institutionally, academically, that there is something with the angle that constitutes the whole thing. Do we have a tendency to look up in admiration too often, sometimes forgetting to reflect and question enough? Or, quite as common I would say, to look down, to look the other way, to look down with suspicion and criticism, maybe ignoring the fact that there may be, occasionally, other solutions to the problem than mine. Or are we good at looking straight into each other's eyes with respect, speaking our minds, but all the time with respect and caring and sharing? I think to me EALTA seemed to be the straight looking into each other's eyes organization, where we could promote values, we could of course show admiration, we could express criticism, but always with the basic value of trust and respect. So that seemed to me, that was a sort of quite a pompous start, but anyway. So there are a lot of fundamental concepts and principles that have to do with this actually. Ethos is one. We often talk about ethos, and I think especially our dear colleague Sauli Takala, who's not with us any longer, he always talked about ethos. And what is ethos then? I mean, we all know, perhaps, but it may be good to repeat the whole thing. As it's at its core, ethos is about trust. When a person or organization displays qualities like honesty, integrity and reliability, they build a strong ethos. It's like laying a foundation for a house. The stronger it is, the more stable the house will be. And it's got very much to do with trust. But I would also say, adding my own reflection, that it has got to do with the angle thing. Looking straight at people, being honest, showing respect, etc. And this is strongly connected to collaboration, which is also a fundamental aspect of EALTA, I would say. A partnership, a union, the act of producing or making something together. Collaboration can take place between two people or many people, strangers or best friends. To collaborate is to commit to the possibility of producing an outcome greater than one that would be developed in a silo. So I mean the collaborative aspect is also a matter of ethos or ethics. Ethos is very much similar to ethics. And the third one, which we don't use quite as often, but which I would like to add very much, and which is sort of connected to this, is reciprocity. The exchange of favors or assistance between two or more individuals or groups with the expectation of both parties benefiting from the exchange. And I think this reciprocity is something that we have to work on all the time. The fact that we can teach, we shall teach, we can learn, and we should do it sort of in an equal manner. And it's all about mutual benefit and respect. And I think EALTA shows all these things. And there's nothing that can't be better, but I mean, this is, to me, what is in EALTA. More concretely then, maybe, a fundamental feature of EALTA is, of course, the added A in its name. I may be wrong, but to my knowledge, we were the first sort of large organization adding assessment to testing. Nothing wrong with testing. We pointed that out. We need to point it out all the time, of course. But there's also the broader concept of assessment. And actually, we should remember that the vast majority of testing and assessment goes on in classrooms. And that is why I would like to emphasize this broad membership, the wide group of participants or members or stakeholders, which I would call experts. Expert is a very difficult word, but definitely each person committed to something has his or her own expertise, of course, and let's never forget that. In EALTA, we have explicitly teachers. We have teacher or master's or PhD students, test developers, researchers, policymakers are mentioned. I'll come back to that. What about test takers? And this is nothing new that I'm saying now, but perhaps test takers need to be taken more actively in account than what we're doing at the moment. And all of this, of course, in a constantly changing landscape. Things are different, things develop and things are different. So concretely, what would be the ways of working with this? We see many good examples, especially in this conference. I've heard so many examples of all these things actually, to make this ethos or whatever come live for the benefit of everything and everybody. What is the impact of and consequences for language testing and assessment of multi and plurilingualism? Then let's not spend too much time on trying to define the division line. But anyway, this fact that there are so many languages in a classroom, so many background languages when people learn another language, how does that come into our practice? That may be part of the, although this has always been an issue, it's even more important now. What would the balance be if we were to have sectorized activities for different stakeholder groups? Do we want to keep everything for everybody? Then we are a bit imbalanced. Our conferences do not comprise too many teachers. I mean, this has always been the fact that this is more like a professional, in that case, institutional organization. What are the pros and cons of dividing? Because there are pros and cons, of course, obviously. And what is the role of test takers and students? These are issues that I would like to have us discuss even more. And then finally, the guidelines for good practice, which exist in 35 languages, published, correct me if I'm wrong, in 2006, I think.
Yep.
And this is a sort of revolutionary document, in the sense that it has been translated. And my years as a president, together with Claudia Beccheroni and others, but we kept on, it says 7 minutes in my clock. We kept on and on contacting people everywhere in all these 35 domains and areas. We all know that general principles apply in these guidelines: transparency, accountability and quality, but it's also said that the respect for the students, examinees, responsibility, fairness, reliability, validity and collaboration are essential basic concepts. And let's never forget that that applies both to testing and assessment. The ways the ways we address things in the guidelines is in the form of questions, which is also a matter of respect. It's not a dictate. It's a question which has got to do with agency, which has got to do with respect. There is a revision underway. I think it's highly important, highly necessary, both from a format and a content point of view. And users' perspectives seem fundamental. We also need more studies on the role and uses of these guidelines. There aren't too many. There were some in the beginning, I know. But, Neus, I know. But we need more at all levels. In school level, at the school level, classroom level, at the academic level. And finally, a group that has been mentioned quite a lot during this conference that I think, in spite of this, is a bit left out, and those are the policymakers, the funding bodies, the ministries, which are mentioned, and in section C it says that test developers are encouraged to engage in dialogue with decision makers in their institutions and ministries to ensure that decision makers are aware of both good and bad practice in order to enhance the quality of assessment systems and practices. Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. But back to the angle thing again, back to reciprocity. Because my personal experience, but also my conviction is that it's not just a matter of handling these people, to educate them, it's also a matter of actually learning things. Because those people are often very good at curriculum theory, very good at policy and politics in a wide sense, and we can't live without that. Maybe, just maybe, we have something to learn too. So the reciprocity coming to that. So respect from the field, Neus mentioned. I would like to end by saying respect for the field as well. Thank you.
That was then it's Slobodanka.
So we heard about the history of EALTA and the traditions and the values that we've tried to maintain over the 20 years. We also heard about all the different stakeholders or players that are involved in language testing and assessment and how EALTA might need to consider them in order to address their needs more adequately. What I'd like to focus on is that language testing and assessment is a dynamic field that keeps evolving. And in the past years, there have been certain things that happened at educational, social, political level that have influenced our practices, not only in terms of what we do as language testers, but also all the other stakeholders that Gudrun just mentioned. So some of the recent social or societal, educational, and research trends and developments we've noticed are starting with the pandemic and COVID, artificial intelligence, we heard so much about in the past couple of days, justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, which is also something that we put a lot of emphasis on, multilingualism or plurilingualism, which is quite present in other areas of research in applied linguistics, but we haven't heard that much, particularly at this conference. Mm-hmm. And integration of content and language, which is again a trend that is evolving in language teaching and learning, but also in education across different educational levels. And these different changes in these different areas have influenced an open access research, which again was not something that we've mentioned recently. And all these different areas, developments that have happened in the different societal, political, economic areas have influenced what we think about language testing, how we approach language testing and assessment. So some emerging needs have been found or came out across the different stakeholders groups. For example, related to COVID, we started talking about remote test or exam proctoring, and this is not only about proctoring standardized large-scale tests, but also proctoring exams and tests at institutional or even classroom level. New approaches to test design and automated scoring, and we've heard a lot about it in relation to AI and how AI can help us in that respect. But also ethical issues that arise in terms of the use of AI, not only in relation to test design and development, but also in terms of assessment in the classroom. And that's something that we haven't heard that much about at the conference. How do teachers cope with AI when assessing their students' language development in the classroom? And are they equipped to actually work with AI as a support in their ongoing assessment practices in the classroom? And with multilingualism, plurilingualism, integrated content and language, multimodal approaches to language testing and assessment, we are thinking about the new constructs that have evolved out there, but we may not be still aware of what they are and how we address them in our language testing and assessment practices. And then with open access and the movement towards shared research has started establishing new research trends that we might also need to consider. So what have we done at EALTA to respond to these emerging needs? We have established some new SIGs on equity, diversity, and inclusion, multilingualism, and AI. And we've tried to have relevant conference themes and keynote presentations that address some of these emerging needs that language testers, assessors, teachers, students, parents, policymakers have. And you can see some of the themes that we've had in the past few years and their relation to the emerging themes. We have also contributed to discussions beyond EALTA, like ECML. EALTA is a member of the Professional Network Forum at ECML and has been invited to contribute with information in relation to language testing and assessment, particularly during COVID times. And then the guidelines for good practice lag behind these developments. And we have a task force that will now address these issues and try to update or modernize these guidelines for good practices so that they can be aligned with the current developments in the field. Last thing that I'm going to mention here in terms of response to emerging needs is that we are thinking about the emerging needs of other stakeholders. And when we think about assessment literacy, we rely on traditional ways of what assessment literacy means and the fundamental principles of language testing and assessment. But we might need to pay more attention to development of language assessment literacy among ourselves, particularly in relation to these emerging needs that we also need to adjust to as time goes by. So I'll finish my short presentation with two questions that I want to raise and perhaps invite you to think about them and maybe respond to them today, maybe think about them further. And they are related to how can EALTA keep up with the ongoing transitions in the field and remain relevant for the different needs among the membership. And then how can EALTA membership contribute to the association's engagement with emerging issues and considerations. So here I kind of go back to Gudrun's reciprocity, what the association can do for the membership and what the membership can do for the association so that we can be aligned with the different developments. And I'll stop here.
Then it's
They're turned off now.
yeah. It's on the bottom.
You know how?
Sorry. Give us a sec. Ah, it's on.
It's on, yes. Yeah. Yeah, you have heard them talk about the past, challenges for the future. Anyone who has a comment or a question or anything to say?
Thank you. I was just wondering, or thinking about the first question, and I find that a major challenge to think about, especially with the rapid development, for example, in AI. And I think, and it's been mentioned a few times before in other sessions, and actually taking up what Gudrun said earlier with expanding the scope, that probably more collaboration out with stakeholders that are maybe from different fields, but we kind of touch on them. That might be one way, expanding our circle more.
Yeah.
You want to comment on that? No.
We have a dead microphone.
No.
You can.
Do you know how to turn it on?
Yeah.
And you can exchange the microphones in the meantime.
I think we would agree to that, and in fact, I was going to say that one area where we need to expand is working together with materials developers and curriculum developers as well. And now, in this context, it's more necessary than ever, and that's why I also related to the handbook. aligning language education understood widely.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. but the field that we are not ignoring it, but the field that we can never ignore is, of course, the whole wide school field. Teacher education, etc., etc. I mean, working on the sort of fundamental principles that are laid down in our guidelines for good practice, which apply equally to classroom assessment of the most formative kind, as well as to large-scale testing. I mean, when it comes to respect, when it comes to whatever, Barry, we mean by validity, I've turned over to saying quality to encompass it all, and transparency and all that. So I think we can never do too much there.
Any other?
I say something anyway. You can hear. You can hear me. No, I finished my talk yesterday with the suggestion that what we need to do is to look at a European focus, emphasis on. No, it's just a feedback. A European focus approach to validity or quality or whatever we want to call it. I think there are very clear guidelines. I think the guidelines, I agree with Slobodanka that they need to be updated. They need to be updated in a lot of different ways, but I think that's, again, the best kind of problem to have for me, somebody else's problem. But I do think that we need to be taking into account the fact that we are still, I see, slaves to a concept of validation that values measurement. And when you look at the presentations in this conference, I was at Karen Dunn's presentation today, which was brilliant on measurement, but primarily the presentations that we see are about all other aspects of assessment and testing, which I think is the great strength of EALTA. But we need to work on that, and we need to start driving a scholarship, a philosophy of validation and validity based on our approach, not on somebody else's approach. For me, that's the challenge.
Thank you, Barry.
Yeah. I think we can't have two microphones.
No.
Yeah, I can make my voice. I'm using my teacher voice now. Just to top up what you said, Gudrun, I think when all big testing agencies and test development companies are using AI more and more, we have to think about our language assessment literacy should involve what our training for school teachers and classroom teachers should include, so that we could just keep them empowered in the face of a high technology risk that is actually changing what they're expecting to do in the classroom. You know, like an enlarged concept of language assessment literacy, including what AI might bring into the field for their benefit or not.
Section A in the guidelines. Section A in the guidelines, we have to improve it.
Okay, yeah.
Others who want? Yeah.
I don't think I need a microphone. I've got a loud mic.
Carol.
Well, first of all, just before I come to the considerations, it's fine. Could I take this opportunity to thank the past, present, and future committee members and presidents. Some of you are in this room. Some of whom are unfortunately not. But as somebody who has been in the association for a very long time, and some of you, Gudrun, will remember my first Greece, yeah, my first conference when I rocked up with my, at that time, 6-month-old baby. And my husband and said baby were very warmly welcomed to the conference and to the conference dinner. Said little baby has just recently passed his driving test and is now driving for his A-levels, which is slightly terrifying. But from being in the association all this time, I was welcomed with open arms at the beginning as someone who was relatively new to the field. And for me, that's always been the most important point about EALTA. It's super inclusive, super friendly, but it's also always been relatively low cost. So for many, many years, I had to support myself coming to these conferences. And I think that's one thing that we should try to keep going as much as possible, because it obviously improves inclusivity. But in terms of the considerations, I agree with kind of what's been said. I think we need to, if we can, try to engage with teachers more, especially with, there's a lot of emphasis currently on formative assessment and assessment of learning versus assessment for learning, but also the considerations with AI, how they can best leverage AI to help with teaching, learning and assessment. And that idea of integrating the three things rather than having teaching and learning on one side and the assessment specialists in their ivory tower. But thank you very much for everything you've done.
Thank you.
I'd like to say.
Yeah.
So, maybe not. Well, I've been coming to EALTA for, I think, 11 years now. And I'm not sure if many of you know this, but after my first presentation, a month later, I was diagnosed with cancer. And I came to EALTA during my cancer treatment. And in a way, EALTA really sustained me during that time and gave me a really fantastic reason to, I suppose, really, put forward what I really wanted to do in the world, because I didn't know at that point if I'd survive cancer or not. And as it turned out, I think I had quite a good impact on EALTA. And we talked a lot about intercultural competence and communication. And eventually I became part of a team, well, a big team of all of you, where we included some criteria on intercultural competence. And I really at that point didn't know if I was going to live any longer, so I felt like I'd really achieved something in life. As it turned out, I was cured. Fortunately, I was very, very lucky. I want to thank you for that, because that really did play a really big part of my my time when I was battling cancer, and it really did give me something to focus on. So I don't think I've ever shared that with you, but I just wanted to, so thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sonia.
Yeah. I don't want to be the devil in the room, but
Please be.
since I'm on the board and so might be devilish myself. But I think the word engagement, I'm missing maybe a third question. It's kind of like putting up the word engagement and phrase another question. So how do we make sure as an association and as a committee that we are getting more people engaged in the core of the membership group? I mean, we have a broad membership when you look at the numbers that we report in the AGM. But, how can we engage more people to be part of the task forces or give inspirations to EALTA? And I think that's another challenge we have and to consider in the future. Not only we as an executive board, but also I think the whole membership. How can we as a group engage with each other more to put the association forward, and not only kind of like put the association's engagement with emerging issues, but our personal engagement. So.
Thank you.
I'd like to say.
Yeah.
Is it on? Is it?
Now it's working.
I can. I don't need. This is really. Yes. Well, I completely agree with you, Sonia, but I also think that maybe not only in terms of how the membership engages, with the different activities that EALTA has or engages in EALTA as an association, but also in terms of how the membership engages with language testing and assessment activity within their context beyond EALTA and have a broader outreach. And we've tried to do that in some ways, but maybe we should find opportunities to do it even more.
And could I add then that a very concrete thing, making use of all the materials that are produced. For example, I've got personal experience of how to transform the guidelines for good practice with the help of teachers into very operative questions that work fantastically well for teacher development programs, teacher in-service training programs on their own or with invited people, but definitely a sort of expansion or adaptation to local context. And I think that that kind of thing, actually making the organization materials live, helping in understanding the Sweden, for example, is not exactly a forerunner when it comes to adaptation to the CFR or adoption. We never adopted, but anyway, we've just these days had the companion volume translated into Swedish, etc. But I mean, I think we need to help. It has to be contextualized. It has to be used, and that's why I keep going on about teacher education and different channels, students, teacher students, etc. Use the materials, make it visible.
Any other comments? Or yeah, Eileen?
Yeah, if I didn't know that we would start thanking, so Carolyn started it, so I would like to just follow it by thanking EALTA. You know, it was the 4th EALTA in 2007 when I attended with my 2-year-old son and with my then late supervisor Cyril Weir in Sitges. And at one point of the conference building there was EALTA, followed by LTRC, and I had the chance to attend both as a very, novice in the field. And I have made my decision then. I was very welcome with my 2-year-old son within a group of professionals, all renowned in their words. And I remained with them then, and I skipped only 1 or 2 conferences. I'm looking forward to coming. Probably till the end of my professional life and being together. And, EALTA has been the backbone of my professional life. Thank you very much.
I remember when we were given the task of developing national tests in English in Norway. We got one, and we had been developing paper-based tests. We had never been strong on psychometrics, nothing. And we came to Reading in 2003 with a poster. What was it called, Cecilia? Something about cats.
Cat. Catwalk. And you presented catwalk.
Yeah. Well, we never made fully computer adaptive tests, but our boss at that time, she said, you have to get a psychometrician on board. Yeah, and that was, I think, the best piece of advice we could have got. And we got in touch with Sauli Takala.
And Feli.
Yeah, and who made contacts with Felianka, Kaftandieva. Later Norman has helped us. And I think we have learned a lot from the work with these people. We could not have done what we have been doing if we didn't have any help. So this has been a great journey for us, and I think collaboration in all respects are very important.
can I say something?
Yeah.
Going back.
You have to hold it a bit.
Going. Well, Frank Sinatra. Going back to what we were saying about disseminating what we do, preparing for this first slide, I was very grateful to be able to consult our webpage and EALTA's webpage, because I couldn't remember the year of, the Reading LTRC, or I actually thought, Ari, that LTRC in Finland had been in Jyväskylä. I didn't remember that it was in Tampere. So these things are useful. And then I found out that because now a number of people have difficulties in sharing the slides, in the past few years, there's all the presentations are not on the website. So we should perhaps commit ourselves to sharing what we present so that it can be uploaded in the website, because it is very useful. And maybe we don't want to share all our presentation, but at least some slides, because history, Barry yesterday talked about his files. Yeah. But I unearthed my files to find the program for Kranjska Gora. But I think that online we need to make sure that our website is used to its full potential. There's a lot of resources which are very useful, you can print a poster of the guidelines. You can use the version in Basque, in Turkish, in whatever language. So we need to try and use it in our professional life as well, so that people see what is done.
Martina. I don't know. Thank you, Neus, because I was thinking about the same, because I'm responsible for the sources and I
talk loudly.
Yeah, and every year I have problems because I do not get slides, enough slides from the presentation from the conferences to be uploaded and to be used. And I think we have to share not only slides with perfect conclusions, but also slides with doubts and questions. And I just remember during the thoughts of the other people that I was present at a conference where Jay Banerjee presented a very problematic research with results that led to conclusion that she didn't know what to do with it. And the next year, at another conference, I think they presented, together with Norman, the solution to the problem, and so the profile analysis was uploaded and used, and it's still on the website, but nobody knows probably that it is there. So please go there, share your slides, your doubts, and your results as well. And probably this is the way how can we get more engaged in the field and with the problems and with the solutions as well, and together.
Yeah. Thank you. Norman?
Can I? Oh, sorry.
No. Yes, please go ahead.
No, just a very short comment. I think that this brings us to the website. I mean, there are many reasons for websites being visited or not visited, but I think that we need to advertise it much better.
Yeah.
And especially the guidelines for good practice. There may be reasons not to advertise those very much now, because some of the posters that can be printed are outdated and all that, and they're not even accessible. So I mean, it's not in a very good shape at the moment, but I still think that it shouldn't be buried deep down in the stomach of the website, because that to me is one of the major documents that can sort of reach out and promote reciprocity and collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no microphone because
yes,
I will talk very loud. I agree with the speaker before, the last one, that we should search for more collaboration with other disciplines. My good friend Sauri, the late, and we agreed always that interdisciplinary collaboration is the key to progress in science.
Yeah.
And they have always regretted that they don't see direct colleagues of mine coming here to discuss with you. It's my fault because I have not been able to invite people, but well, you can see I'm a little bit older than 25 years, so I will not maybe come to the 40th EALTA conference. But I think it's really necessary that people who have another perspective on science are present here and can discuss. And especially, I heard not all, but some of these presentations on AI. But what I saw in these presentations is that nobody went deep into the character of AI. And I would propose that next year somebody would be invited to explain in a deep yet simple way what AI is, yeah? What it can, and all the ways in which it is completely stupid. Yeah? So this is really important, because what I heard now was mainly the good effects of some computer program. But I think we should have a deeper insight in the nature of AI, because if we do not have it, we are at the mercy of big enterprises who will do what they want, and we will follow like the sheep of Hammon going with the rats into the mountain and disappear forever.
Thank you. And one more thing I should perhaps say is that when we have collaborated with Norman, with Slobodanka, we always experience that they listen to us, because sometimes the IRT analysis, for instance, for move paragraph, showed not too good results, but we wanted to have this format in the test, because we thought it was important to test whether they could see a line through the test. And then Norman said, well, maybe IRT is not fit for this kind of task. So and now I say to my directorate that, well, I think you should just forget about these two having good measures on this task, because IRE can't cope with it. IRT, yeah. But we have experienced a lot of understanding. We have experienced that they have listened to us and listened to our problems, and yeah, that has been important. Mm.
But main reason is that I was always very well received in Norway when I came.
Yeah. Well, it's reciprocity, you know. Yeah. Yeah, Peter?
Yes, I would like to thank EALTA, like so many others, because I benefited a lot. I wouldn't have become a language tester without EALTA. It's the only opportunity to learn about language testing. For me, the CFR provided the background, and then I learned the craft through people I met, things I read, talks I heard, whatever. And I think language testing and assessment has a lot of beauty to it. I love the clarity of thinking that you need in order to link performances, whatever, to assumed competences or to test objectives. I love that thinking. And it also empowered me in a way, because I tried to be a complete language tester. I learned psychometrics, etc., statistics also, and I had the chance to produce language tests. I had an influence in the government, in language testing for migrants, standards-based testing in schools, etc. And that has given me a lot of satisfaction. So I'd really like to thank EALTA for what it has given me.
Yeah, Vola?
I would like to say that, like Caroline, actually, this is when we met. My first EALTA was EALTA Athens, and back then I was an MA student, and I was approaching my dissertation stage. And Sauli, very generously and very He shared his knowledge with me, and not only that, but he encouraged me to reach out to the expert members and send them my questionnaire, a humble MA student reaching out to experts. So if there are any experts in the room, I would really like to see them getting involved and helping other PhD and MA students in their career with their expertise and their knowledge. It's invaluable. That's all. That's the outcome.
Claudia,
I can only join
another previous president.
I can only join in with what everybody said. EALTA has been my home, my family for the past 20 years. Like Peter, I don't think I would have become a language tester without you guys and girls. And I see Ailey, and I have a problem with names. It will come back to me. I'm sorry. No. Neus. It's funny for me, it's not funny. I'm really struggling with names, so you have to help me.
I know you know me.
Who else was with us in Berlin when we started on that Daisy project?
Yeah.
And you were there.
Rita. Rita Green.
Rita was there as well.
Sauli.
Olaf.
And Olaf. Oh yeah, Olaf. Yeah.
Angela was there as well, I think.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be here without you, and it's been like everybody else said, it's sharing, it's caring, it's helping the youngsters growing up, and now we're there to help other youngsters, and this is the kind of family I
This is when we drank whiskey and you drank sambuca.
Maybe bring sambuca. So thank you, EALTA, and thanks all of you who make EALTA. Great to have you.
Yeah, this has turned into a Thanksgiving.
Could I add something?
At the very beginning, maybe because there was everything was so effervescent in Europe, we did collaborate a lot across countries, and I remember me and Jamie working with some items, and my items being sent to Japan when he was still in Japan, his items being sent to Barcelona, and using them and comparing the results and blah blah. And maybe we should try and think about this, or maybe in a future EALTA have a meeting where different people interested in the same topic want to exchange data and collaboration.
And perhaps the SIGs are the best place for it. So maybe there's room in the SIGs for discussions and planning of collaborative projects in the future.
Mm-hmm. And I also think that if you have a question we want to look deeper into at our local place, there are a lot of people here we could invite and ask and get a second opinion from, and that could be very useful. Yeah.
Just a quick thing to mention, following up on the collaboration, the AI State, the new one, has already started a scoping review project, and we hope to get something out by the end of this year.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I think we are coming towards an end.
Coffee?
I think we need coffee, and I think I would like to thank every one of you for coming here and for contributing to this symposium. Thank you.